Hey folks, Corey Nathan, your host here of Trailer Geeks and Teaser Gods. Before we got to today's program, I wanted to draw your attention to a few different things. First, I made a mistake. I messed something up a couple of weeks ago when I was talking to Shay Jones, and I just want to set the record straight. So when I was talking to Shay, I didn't know who cut the Starstruck trailer. I was really enamored by it, and for some reason, I thought that Shay cut it, but I was wrong. So I just want to correct the record here. It's a piece I really enjoyed. Turns out it's this excellent editor named Lauren Zoller. She's also over at XAV. Lauren's been doing some great work, like that stuff she cut for The Last of Us, Poker Face. She just has so much great work. So anyway, she is rocking it, deserves all the credit in the world. So thanks for bearing with me and being gracious. We all make mistakes, so I really appreciate like I said, everybody's graciousness. Also, our industry knows how to come together when needs arise. Along those lines, I wanted to bring your attention to a couple things. One is a fundraiser to come around one of our greats actually, and the other is a really fun event coming up just after Thanksgiving. So first, Skip Chasson has been on this show a couple times. He's become a buddy. He's been a creative force in the entertainment world for over 2 decades, for a long time, touching the lives of many through his work. Known for his passion and dedication, he's inspired countless artists and helped shape the way we experience movies and shows. We've talked about him uh, just on so many different episodes, the ones that he's come on himself to contribute to the story that we're telling, to contribute to the industry. And he's spoken about because he's truly an inspiration to so many others in this industry. Unfortunately, on November 10th, just a few weeks ago, Skip suffered a massive heart attack and it severely impacted his heart function. His family is now facing the challenge of preparing for surgeries and treatments that come with significant financial burdens. And despite this, Skip continues to show incredible strength and humor, reminding us all of his resilience. So if you can, please consider supporting Skip during this hard time. Every contribution, no matter the size, will help ease the financial strain and allow him to focus on his recovery. The link will be in the show notes, so it'll be really easy to find out how you can best participate in this. One other thing, before we get to our programming, you are invited to a very vibrant celebration too. A night of holiday cheer, giving, and good vibes at Hamburger Mary's. A very vibrant celebration, too, brings together the community for an evening of connection, gratitude, and a bit of drag queen realness. This year, Vibrant is uplifting 4 nonprofits doing incredible work in the community: Film to Future, Outfest, the Trevor Project, and the Transgender Law Center. To help make the night memorable, raffle prizes and giveaways will be curated for the Drag Bingo as a thank you to Vibrant's members and supporters. Again, to support Skip's heart recovery journey and for a very vibrant celebration, the links will be in the show notes. So thanks in advance for all your support and coming together as a community. We really know how to do this, and I believe in all the different folks that I'm friends with in this community. Thanks again. And now on to our show. Welcome to Trailer Geeks and Teaser Gods. I'm your host, Corey Nathan. This is where we get to speak with the brilliant and creative people who make the greatest coming attractions, movie posters, and digital campaigns of all time. This program is brought to you by 2496 Sound and Music Design, the best sound design and music elements in the business. We are also brought to you by the Golden Trailer Awards and by Soundstripe, the best royalty-free music for video, ads, and film. And today, I am so pleased to be joined by Aaron Gershman. Aaron Gershman is Senior Vice President, Creative Advertising at Lionsgate and the winner of a gajillion Clios, plus or minus, and just a super terrific guy. Aaron, it's so good to be with you, man. How you doing?
Thanks, Corey. It's great to be here. I'm geeking out a little bit because I've been listening to your podcast for a very long time, and to be on it is is a real treat. It's the, long time, first time type thing. So
Oh man.
thanks so much for having me.
That's
Yeah,
I'm really pleased to hear that. I mean, we had Adam on in another life before he got to Lionsgate. We had Chris on, so it's been really cool. Like as well as so many of the people that you collaborate with on the agency side. So
for
it's
sure.
good, man. And then you and I getting to know each other a little bit more, or reconnecting, I should say. So this has been really cool. And speaking of which, I usually don't start quite going this deep of a cut, but your family history is really fascinating. Both of your parents, actually. I would love for you to share a little bit about your dad and your mom, and
Sure.
just their vocational trajectories, and maybe how that's influenced you in the work that you do to this day.
Sure, absolutely. My parents were tremendous people. They're both no longer with us, which is, um, just something that uh, affects me every day. I just miss them so much. But they were brilliant, wonderful people with incredible careers. They were both writers, nonfiction authors. My dad wrote books about baseball.
Yeah,
And one of his greatest achievements was he won the Casey Award for one of his books, which is kind of like the Oscar for baseball books,
yeah.
in 1993 for a book called Diamonds: The Evolution of the Ballpark. He spent 8 years writing it. That was his baby. Um, and he unfortunately passed right at the turn of the millennium. He just wanted to make sure Y2K wasn't real, and then a couple days later, that was it. But what's interesting about his career is that before he started writing books, he was in the music business.
I was going to say the
Um,
baseball thing was his second mountain. Like he had a whole really accomplished career in the '60s. It's Brandy, you're like
yes,
the whole thing, man.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he co-produced the song "Brandy, You're a Fine Girl," which was a number one single in 1972. He managed the band Looking Glass, had discovered them like walking past their garage, got them signed to Arista, set up a meeting with Clive Davis, the whole deal. He was a publicist in the music business, and then became a manager, and then ended up producing an album with a band that had a number one single. So tremendous music career before a tremendous career as a writer.
So I'm figuring out my timeline now. You were already pretty accomplished as a kid in music, but you didn't get to Berkeley and Emerson until after he passed away. Is that right?
Let's see. He died when I was 20. So
Oh, okay. So you
yeah,
were already
yeah, I
in
had just
undergrad
gotten
at
there.
that
Yeah.
point. So he got to enjoy a little bit of your musical accomplishments, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, like at one point we asked him to manage our high school band, which was, not anything special, but we thought we were going to take over the world, and he was going to be the missing piece to get us there. I
Yeah.
will say there was one time we were having band practice, and when you would play at other people's houses and somebody would flick the lights off and on, that meant like shut the fuck up, you're being too loud. But there was one time we're playing and my dad does that. And then he comes down and he's like waving his hands and he's like, no, 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 this is not how this song should go.
Oh no,
You
that's
need to have
awesome.
dynamics. You need loud moments. You need quiet moments. And he makes us all put our instruments down and he plays This Is the End for us by the Doors. And he's like, nobody talk for 7 minutes. And then at the end of the song, he's like, do you see how it got quiet and then it got loud and then there was a build up and a crescendo? Why don't you try that on that song? And it was like the greatest advice ever. So
Wow.
yeah, he was a producer through and through.
That is awesome. That is, man. I'm so. And by the way, his book on the stadiums.
Yeah.
I have that.
Are you
I've read
serious?
your dad's work. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's sitting on our call. I should have brought it out for the recording just to prove it. But
That's
yeah,
amazing.
I love that book. Like, I'm fascinated by baseball history, so I've read and his collaboration with John.
John Thorne.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh man, some of the best. I'm an absolute. So I'm an absolute geek for like baseball history, so I've read so much of your dad's work,
Oh my
that
God.
part of his career. But then, kind of digging into his music, the whole life he had in music was pretty fascinating as well. But your mom too. I mean, talk about an accomplished writer. She, in her own right, she was quite accomplished as well, wasn't she?
Absolutely. Yeah. So she kind of, in the 80s, as a joke with some friends, said, what if we started writing a series of guidebooks called Born to Shop?
Yeah.
And I think it was really a joke to most of the friends, but to her it was like, no, I'm going to do this. And she made it a career. She wrote this series called Born to Shop for, over 20 years. And, it would be like Born to Shop Paris, Born to Shop London, and she'd update every couple of years. And then when my dad died, she wrote a memoir about, she basically was like, fuck this, I'm moving to France
Yeah,
and
yeah.
started over in her 50s without speaking French. She moved to Paris and she wrote about that and had a bestseller with that, which was pretty remarkable late career move for her.
Man, that's got to be such. I mean, it sucks that you lost both your parents at relatively young age. Your mom was brain cancer, if I remember correctly, right?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. My dad had
So
lung cancer. My mom had brain cancer.
yeah, so I'm sorry to hear that, man. You must miss him a ton. But like the way that you talk about that, that's why I wanted to bring him up because I saw it when we last time we got together that it enriches your life. You know that
Yeah.
the pride and their influence on you, it enriches your life, and I bet your kids too. Like you're able to pass that inspiration, influence onto your kids.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah. I see
awesome.
so much of my parents and my kids every day. And, that keeps me going for sure.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So you came up playing music. Were you pop, rock, jazz? Like what were you
Yeah.
pursuing?
Yeah, I would say rock. I think, when I was younger, wanted to be Slash from Guns N' Roses.
Although
Um,
I mean, Slash had accomplished parents too, didn't he?
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I mean,
Um,
there's something to be said there.
Totally. And then I started writing songs when I got into college and, getting, into kind of more singer-songwritery territory, Elliott Smith, Jeff Buckley, that type of stuff.
Okay.
Without the nearly the vocal
Uh-huh.
abilities. Um, but at a certain point, I just felt like I need to have some sort of backup if this rock star thing doesn't work out,
Yeah.
which was a very prescient thing, and definitely my parents in the back of my mind. Um, and I thought, what better backup plan to have than to be in music? And I was very fortunate to end up at Warner Brothers Records, which is really where my career started, because I would have taken anything they offered me, and I just happened to land in the art department.
Okay.
Um,
Were you
and there,
already were you
yeah,
already playing around as a designer?
no, I
So you
had
didn't
no
have any
design
training as
background.
a designer or anything.
No, none whatsoever. I just got into this business totally by accident. I ended up at Warner Records, and there had been so many layoffs. This is like 2004, 2005,
Okay.
that they just started training me on graphic design to help out with typesetting and all these different, I got certifications in Photoshop, Illustrator, Quark, which doesn't exist
Yeah.
anymore. And I really learned the business of, album design and album packaging. And it was amazing. Like I just had so much fun. Um, there were graphic designers on staff that just kind of took me under their wing and showed me, um, design principles and layout and just some incredible designers that I got to learn from. So that
So
was really amazing.
I didn't make this connection until just now, but one of the most brilliant creatives that she was like a flash of light, like a lightning flash in her business, a lady named Samantha Hart, who's now a very accomplished writer, actually. But she started on the record side, designing, album covers, and I forget which. I want to say Gramercy on the music side back in the day. And then she ended up making a name for herself in the early days of Fox Searchlight. So she did posters like the infamous Fargo poster. But
Okay.
that's one of the few people that I know that made that transition from music. But what's interesting about your background is that you came up as a musician and then you learned the visual side. There's not a lot of people who have both of those types of create. Like you, a lot of times somebody's really heavily visual or really heavy on the audio side, but you
Yep.
have you have both really strongly influencing you.
Yeah, and it didn't was not planned. It just kind of something I fell into, which, I'm so glad I did because once I started getting into design, it just became such a amazing passion and outlet for me. So,
Before we move on, I wanted to tell you about something else that's important. Money. Specifically your money. In all seriousness, I wanted to tell you about my advisor and my friend, George Meza. George runs Mesa Wealth Management. And with George, it's not just about money, it's about helping us manage our present and plan for our future. And unlike a lot of other firms out there, George and I actually have a relationship. He knows me, he knows my family, and I know his wonderful family. I also know his firm and the incredible team he's put together, from his chief investment officer to some of the other great people in his office, like Jessica, their head of operations, that are always there to help me and with all aspects of our portfolio. You see, the thing is, I got a lot going on. I guess we all got a lot going on, and I don't have the time to watch our investments all day, every day. And even if I did, I don't have the experience and expertise that George's team collectively has. So we get the entire Mesa Wealth Management team, all their expertise and all their integrity. And again, it's based on George knowing me personally, knowing my goals, and even the kind of risk that's appropriate for me to take, which, by the way, could change from one season to the next. And they're on top of all of that. So if you want George Mesa and Mesa Wealth Management to be on your team, just visit their website, mesawealth.com. That's MEZA wealth.com, www.mesawealth.com. And that will also be in our show notes, so you can check that. So you went from Warner Music. That take me through the trajectory that had you. You were at Fox before Lionsgate.
I was at Fox before that. I was at Universal Home Ent before Fox.
Okay.
Basically, I had been at Warner Music. I transitioned from Warner Records to Rhino Records. I got a chance to work with a brilliant creative there named Maria McKenna, who brought me over. And, Rhino had been kind of branded as this really wacky, goofy record label. Like you think of like guys in plaid shorts and Hawaiian shirts playing kazoos. Like that was like the Rhino aesthetic. And then she was kind of responsible for rebranding the company in a lot of ways with, Hugh Brown and some other amazing creatives over there, turning it into this like very slick mid-century hip record label that was doing the best and most creative packaging, like very elaborate box sets, and the things that we would work on there would get nominated for Grammys, which was so exciting that it's like in our business now for things to be nominated for Clio's is amazing, but my friends were like holding Grammys for albums they designed, which
Yeah.
was so crazy. Anyway, Rhino, this was around 2009, just was contracting because of the state of the music business, and the entire creative department got let go. Um, and I was out of work for a little while, and I saw there was a job at Universal Home Ent, and I thought, I'm working on CDs now. How hard could it be to switch over to DVDs and Blu-rays? And I'm really glad I did because that was, when I first got into the film business. That's about 2010. It's the first time I worked for Adam Fogelson because he was
Oh, that's
co-chair at
right.
Universal.
He was he chairman at co-chairman at that point?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So, um, and then, I got to learn the film business because yes, there were similarities to music, but now you're starting to work on key art, even though it's only 7 inches tall, there's still some of those same sensitivities around, um, the exalted key art and the political nature of all of the different people that need to weigh in. So I really got to learn the politics of the business. Hillary Hoffman and Pam Blum run that group at Universal Home Ent and have for years, and they are just legends in home entertainment. So to have gotten to learn from them, I made an amazing friend, David Heimerl, over there, who took me under his wing and showed me so much about the home ent business. And then I ended up going over to 20th Century Fox after that. Got to learn from John D'Agostino, another
Oh yeah.
legend in the home ent business.
Yeah.
Um, and Julie Markel. And one of the best things about being at Fox was at the time we were distributing DreamWorks animation, and so I got to work on some of those titles. And that was a whole other animal because you'd think, oh, you're making boxes for kids movies. How hard could it be? But the people who ran DreamWorks Home Entertainment, they had come from the golden age of Disney Home Ent,
Yeah.
and they were um, like one of the great money makers in this business. So they didn't want to leave any stone unturned. They didn't want to reuse any assets. They wanted to work creative at a level I've never seen creative worked until then. And it was the greatest education because, we would spend like $500,000 on key art comps for How
Wow.
to Train Your Dragon 2, which is insane.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it was, working with like several agencies at a time, doing bake-offs and just hone in this set through 20 rounds to get to your top five. And they would want to do focus group testing on the artwork. So then you'd work so hard to get to your top five best pieces of art. And then they would literally be on presentation boards in front of 12-year-olds. And you'd be on the other side of a two-way mirror watching them tear your work to shreds
Yeah.
and and then have to start all over again. So um, that instilled a pretty hardcore work ethic in me that was like nonstop round the clock work, which sounds crazy, but I loved it. Um, and I met a guy at DreamWorks at the time named Tom Gundred, who became one of my good friends and probably the greatest mentor I've ever met in my career. Tom's like incredible creative director. He ended up at Lionsgate after DreamWorks and then called me and said, "Hey, I'm starting a team over here. Do you want to come over?" And it's one of the best decisions I ever made, one of the best things that ever happened to me. So
Tom's a great guy. He's super cool. I think they still live up in my neck of the woods, up in Santa Clarita.
that's right.
Yeah, yeah, super good guy and very like mellow, but also like super creative and super brilliant. You just,
Yes,
he has the kind of demeanor that you feel at ease, but also inspires you to lean in because you want to know what he has to say next.
it's true. Yeah, for somebody to be so cerebral and strategic and intelligent, but also so approachable and easygoing, it's a really rare mix.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's amazing.
Well, that's pretty cool that you were able to make that transition over to Lionsgate, and then you kind of evolved your role in your years there.
Yeah, so the great thing about Lionsgate is, you know, Lionsgate wants to do things differently. And, at a certain point, Damon Wolf joined the company, who you've had on your show, absolute legend in the industry. So when Damon specifically came to Lionsgate, his motto was do it different.
Yeah,
And for a company that already kind of did that, he wanted radical change, which I really respected at the time because he was challenging people, departments, institutions, things that had just been done a certain way, to do things differently. And as a result, my team started working on trailers, which we hadn't done before. I'd always wanted to work on AV. And so a huge thanks to Damon Wolf for giving me that opportunity and Marisa Liston.
So, by the
Because,
way, before you move on, I got to say that this is a preview.
yeah,
Damon's coming back on the show. I saw him about a
amazing.
week and a half ago. I was down in New Orleans and we hung out. He has a store right in the middle of the quarter, and it's a
Wow.
Jesus store. It's
Oh
like
my God.
the most offbeat Jesus t-shirts and paraffin, like rosary beads and candles, and it's like so he's coming back on the show partly because he's a very accomplished independent producer now. I don't know if folks have kept up with him, but he's doing great in terms of producing some indie film. But also that store is just the best. So I'm
That's
bringing
awesome.
Damon back on the show to catch everybody up to speed. Plus, it's going to be kind of I'm gonna cast it on both of these shows, the Trailer Geeks as well as my politics show, because he's like, Corey, you haven't had a gay Christian on your politics and religion show. I'm like, I think you might be right. So let's do it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so
He's just
everybody
an
will get to
amazing
hear
guy.
hear from him in a couple of weeks.
I feel so lucky to have crossed paths with Damon. Just yeah, true legend in this business.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, which sometimes it is remarkable. It's not a given that folks that are rising up the ranks like you have will stay through different changeovers in leadership there. But you certainly have through a couple of them.
I have, yeah, and you know, the one constant at Lionsgate has been change, and it's we've had lots of different folks in leadership and marketing. But Adam Fogelson has been there for the last few years, and Adam is just probably one of the most brilliant people
Yeah,
I've met, not just in this industry, but in life. He's so incredibly smart and can diagnose things so efficiently, and with a level of depth I've never seen before.
yeah.
So working for Adam has just been a complete dream come true, and an absolute joy. Um, got to work with Kerry Moore and JP Richards as well. Again,
Yeah.
also legends in the business. Unfortunately, not at the company anymore, but feel very privileged to have worked with each of them and learned from them.
Yeah, I mean, Carrie's one of the talk about smart, one of the smartest people
Yes,
I know. Um,
great creative.
Adam, so I appreciated Adam's career from afar for a long time, but when he really won me for life is getting to know him a little bit better, in particular the way he talks about his wife, the way he talks about his dad. Talk about a legend in the industry, Andy Fogelson,
Hmm.
his girls, like that. I think I don't know. There's something that is so genuine and just transcendent. So he's got a fan for life in me. But it's mostly that stuff, the genuineness of his dedication on the family side that I don't know, man. It's not that he needed to win me over for anything. It was just that I don't know. There was something that really resonated on a very personal level when he started talking about his family.
Yeah, I totally get that. And it's funny because when he first came to Lionsgate, I said hello and had told him I was at Universal from Scott Pilgrim versus the World till Les Mis,
Yeah.
and he like shuddered to hear Scott Pilgrim versus the World, and I thought, wow, first of all, that's an incredible movie, and the fact he's a part of it, that movie getting made, that movie's going to live forever. And I
Yeah.
know it's one of my kids' favorite movies. My nephew just was Scott Pilgrim for Halloween, um, but the fact that it's still in Adam's craw, that it didn't perform better, that
Mm,
shows you what type of person he is. That he cares so much, like he just wants to win, and you know the things that didn't go the way he wanted them to go, he'll never forget it. And that's why he's so successful.
yeah. Trailer Geeks and Teaser Gods is brought to you by 2496 Sound and Music. 2496 Sound and Music has been publishing music and sound design in Hollywood for over 2 decades. While most traditional libraries started with music first, 2496 started from the ground up, creating killer sound design elements for trailers and film campaigns. Then they started building a music catalog which matches the sound design catalog perfectly, creating a powerful blend of sound, music, and emotion. Their founder, Lenny Jones, who's a pal of mine, really good guy, he is a motion picture and television sound editor with credits on top shows including Ancient Aliens and Unsolved Mysteries. 2496's sound design can be heard on current trailer campaigns, including many of the summer's box office hits. 2496's composers and sound designers hail from all over the globe, giving their clients not just 24/7 service, but an international style that will appeal to a global audience. They excel at rapid customizations and creative revisions, minimizing delays in your creative process. If you're looking for the sound of the next for your next trailer campaign, check out 2496 Sound and Music at 2496sfx.com. That's the numbers 2496 and SFX like sound effects. That's 2496sfx.com. So speaking of successful, you got some pretty awesome work that you've been a part of. I mean, I was just really enjoying. I didn't realize number one how many titles you've been able to touch, but also the breadth and the how different all the different titles that you've been able to touch. So one that stood out for me right away because it was just so different was that series of illustrated posters you did for John Wick 4.
Yeah,
Tell me about that process. Like, how did that come about, and how did you find the artists that you work? Like, tell me all about it.
sure. So um, it's funny. There's been a history at Lionsgate of illustrated posters for John Wick, and they've done artist series in the past, and they were all through LA, and LA would have internal illustrators and then a couple external illustrators, and they did some tremendous work. Um, but we started working with more and more illustrators on the home entertainment side and developing these relationships with these great artists. And a lot of them were, people who had done Mondo posters, which I loved, when Mondo was in its heyday. Some of the art that was coming out of there was incredible. But then also, one of the things I took from Tom was just follow every artist that you can on Instagram. I used to use Instagram to keep in touch with my friends and family, and now it's like where I scout artists because I went from following 100 people to, over 5,000.
Wow.
Um, and yeah, I'm just constantly looking for people that are making great art on Instagram. And so then for John Wick 4, we had this opportunity to continue the art series, decide we're going to do it without an agency. We're just going to hire artists directly. And we just, my team and I made this big deck of, 50 artists we wanted to work with and just narrowed it down and narrowed it down. And it ended up being people from all over the world. Some who didn't speak English,
Oh,
some who had, very limited grasp of English. Um, but I would say there were probably 9 countries represented. So a really, really international experience, especially for John Wick 4, which takes place in several different countries. It felt super fitting. So yeah, that was one of the most fun projects I've ever worked on. A lot of great art came out of that.
and what is the collaboration like with individual artists? Are you getting finished pieces of work, or are you having a conversation with them when you get drafts? Like how does that go?
Yeah, so we're working together from the sketch phase until finished pieces of art. It's it's funny. I understand why people don't do it because when you work with an agency, you've got an account executive between you and the designer whose job is to say yes to you and make you feel like you're the smartest person in the world and then take you out to lunch and, buy you a Christmas gift. But when you're working with artists who have little overhead and they don't have middle people to, soften the direction. Sometimes when you tell an artist that, you don't really like the direction that they're going with something, they get pissed off and
Yeah.
they tell you, and, it's harder. But at the same time, when you show them respect, um, and you help develop the art with them, and allow them to have their vision come through, then you can get something really special. And so, to answer your question more specifically, we would get materials to the artists, and then we would give them a brief of some potential concepts without telling them what to do, and then we would get sketches back. And with all these artists, the level of sketches you're getting is so different. Where some of them will give you literal stick figures. Um, I would say two of my favorite artists in this entire business, Justin Erickson of Phantom City Creative and Akiko Sternberger, both
Oh yeah.
like literal
Yeah.
geniuses. They give you like very, very rudimentary roughs
Oh
where
wow.
it's like, but because they're so concept driven and conceptual. And to them, it's like, is this the concept you want to go with? And if so, then I'll put the work in. But then there are other artists who like the roughs, you could print those. Like they're just so beautiful. And then they get even better. We worked with an artist named Ken Taylor from Australia, who's one of my favorite illustrators ever. And the roughs you get from Ken, um, they're amazing. Like I've asked him in the past, like, can we do, can we print these? Like, I would love for you to finish it the way you want to finish it, but I really want people to see this. And so we're trying to figure out some way to do that with some of his work because it's so good.
That's awesome. It seems like print and the boxes, those create some of those creative. I don't even want to call them boxes because some of
Mhm.
them are just so much more than that. They're like entire presentations, experiences, if you will. And it's like your native tongue. Was it hard to, once you started getting more involved in the AV side, was it hard to learn that language?
Yeah, so it's funny. I said this to you before, but I'll just repeat it again, which is your podcast was so helpful to me when I made that
Oh,
transition
wow. That's
because
so cool.
it's funny, like the work didn't scare me that much. I mean, I knew um, I had 15 years of experience working in creative and working on layout and visual storytelling, and I had a music background and an audio production background. So the work didn't scare me that much. It was really the language of
Mm.
trailers that I was so afraid to use the wrong term in the wrong context and just look like a moron. And especially, when I was, given control of AV for our department, there were folks reporting to me, and I was like, I need a crash course in trailer making, and I found your podcast, and I listened to probably the first 50 episodes in a month because I
Oh,
would
wow.
just
That's
My commute's
awesome.
so long, I would just listen to one on the way to work, one on the way back. And honestly, aside from learning that language and how people discuss trailers, getting to hear from some of the greatest editors in the world and know who they are, and the trees of where they come from, it was like the greatest education I got. So,
That's
uh,
so cool.
yeah, I got to thank you for that. Absolutely.
And you know what's cool about the people who've come on is that I would imagine that it helps that they're disarming. Like some of the greatest, for some reason, Bill Neal's coming to mind, or Tommy Pitt, Tommy Malatesta comes to like some of the
Yeah.
greatest. Cause Skip Chasson, who is just back on to talk about for the tribute to Andy Keene, like some of the greatest trailer editors of all time. But they're just like regular people, you know,
For
and
sure.
Bill is nervous at every blank timeline that he sees, and Tommy's like, how are you going to crack this one? And Skip is still trying to go deeper into the intersection of the technology and the tools and the music and just he's such a polyglot type of a thinker.
Yeah.
But he's just a regular dude, like who's still fascinated and inspired by all this stuff. So I would imagine that hearing them in a human long format conversation helps because, like I said, it's disarming in a way. Or I don't know, maybe I'm wrong.
No, it really is. Like, you think of these folks as such geniuses and they are, but they're then when you see the human side of it, um, it sets you at ease as well because it's like everybody started somewhere.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So some of your pieces, man, like that, the Sisu trailer. I'm gonna be dreaming about that trailer. That like the way that you guys craft. Who did you do that with? Do you remember?
so that was workshop.
Okay, so
Yeah, Steve Pollard and Ben Sleece cut it.
okay.
But I got to work with Tracy Pollard on that one,
Oh,
which was again like another incredible educational experience for me
she's
because
so smart. She scares me.
so smart. Absolutely. But you know what? She is such a sweetheart and
She is. Yeah.
taught me so much about the business, honestly, and about, what makes a great trailer. That working on that trailer with her was like a college course.
Mm.
And it was, just one of the most fun experiences. Um, just
So
because,
just so
yeah.
listeners know, I'll put a link to that piece in particular in the show notes. But there is something about that piece that it has this. It's the rhythm of like a tribal dance that it kind of
Yes.
draws you in. Was that intentional? That
Yeah, so there's like throat singing happening in the custom queue, which is crazy because it also has like this twangy guitar with
yeah.
vibrato. So it does have some modern, vaguely Tarantino sound that you'd expect for a movie like that. But then also to have throat singing, which again, to your point, is so primal. It's a really interesting mix. A lot of credit to Tracy for finding the cue and shaping that sound. Like watching Tracy break something down um, and help plot that out. That was an amazing experience.
It's interesting you mentioned Tarantino too, because one of the other things that was gripping about that trailer were the visuals. Very, very graphic,
Mhm.
um, but expressive in a way. Like Tarantino has a way of using graphic violence, sometimes almost like he's choreographing a ballet.
Absolutely.
So there were times when it was shocking, as violence often is, but it was also like strangely funny in moments and just super expressive in its own way. So I would imagine the movie lent itself to that, but you were
Yeah.
also crafting it through the Trout Ben and Steve and the whole team and your collaboration were finding those moments. How did that all
Ab-
go?
Absolutely. And specifically in the poster as well, which designed by Bond.
Oh yeah,
That
so dude,
poster.
so
Yeah.
how does an idea like that emerge with the blade, right? And am I thinking of the
Yeah.
right with the
Yes, you are.
reflection of the scenery, the scene, right?
Exactly. And
Sorry, I'm getting all excited.
no, that poster, I think it's so beautiful and so violent at the same time, which is exactly, what we're trying to do with the trailer. And that's what informed the entire campaign is that you've got this gorgeous on the poster, you've got this gorgeous black and white photography, super high contrast, where you're seeing literal drops of liquid gold coming off of this blade that's reflecting, the kind of the the obstacles in the way of our hero, um, but also, you know, evoking the most intense scene from the trailer, which is when, a knife goes straight through
Yes.
the head of one of the Nazis.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So finding a way to kind of show that without showing that on a poster, and since it's liquid gold and not blood, you can kind of imply that motion and violence
Yeah.
without triggering MPA
Yeah,
sanction.
yeah, yeah. Trailer Geeks and Teaser Gods is brought to you by the Golden Trailer Awards. For folks who are just starting to get plugged in, the GTAs is an unconventional ceremony that honors excellence in feature film trailers, teasers, and movie marketing. Or as some folks like to think of it, it's the award ceremony for the short attention span. We all just celebrated the 25th Golden Trailer Awards. So, would that be the Silver Golden Trailer Awards? Either way, it was a terrific show. Monica and Evie do such a wonderful job putting it together. Tons of fun, so much awesome work across the board. And mostly, it was just great to be together as a community. So keep an eye out for a number of exciting developments over the next year. Just make sure to stay plugged in at goldentrailer.com for a ton of exciting developments. That's goldentrailer.com. Do you go over to the shops? Like Bond in particular is a shop where when you walk in, there's something special about the way that like collaboration gets thrown around a lot, but
Yeah,
there's something that Bond has engendered in in their place, in their space where you can't not be collaborative. Like
true.
everybody from the newest kid to Pat and Drea and Joe, like everybody at the senior levels and everywhere in between, there's
Yeah,
something that's just super, super like ideas are just coming out of everybody's pores, right?
it's true. I mean, you walk in the door and you just see all these cool toys
Yeah, yeah, the
and the
toys on the
giant
wall. That's right.
posters. Like, I mean, it feels like the nerdy stuff that I collect, which, you can see some of behind me here. I've got some of my Star Wars toys still, so I can totally relate to that aesthetic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so since you mentioned it, give us a little bit of a tour because I love your background, by the way. So give us a little
Thanks.
bit of a tour on what's behind you.
Yeah, so obviously a lot of nerdy Star Wars stuff. And then, some posters from some of my favorite artists. I've got this Ghost in the Shell poster by Martin Anson, who's one
Yeah,
of my
yeah.
favorite illustrators. And then Big Lebowski by Tracy Ching, who I love, who's become a good friend. Scott Pilgrim, the first project I ever worked on at Universal, signed by the whole cast and Edgar Wright.
Wow.
So, and then lots of Terminator 2 stuff because that's probably one of my favorite movies.
Oh yeah.
Um, which has become my son's favorite movie too. My son the other day was telling a friend his five favorite movies, and he had Terminator 2, Scott Pilgrim, and Big Lebowski on there. I was like, I'm raising this kid right for, he's 12 years old.
That's awesome. That is great. All right, so getting back to some of the trailers,
Sure.
I couldn't help but note there are certain pieces that you worked on where I had to I couldn't your background in music was unavoidable, specifically the way that you use music. It's a little bit more subtle, but like Alice Darling, the
Yeah.
slow burn of that, and in particular the high strings gave me that sense of tension.
Yeah.
That the way that it built up is that something that you're directing, or you hear it when it's submitted to you, or is it kind of a combination of? Is it more of a dialogue?
I can't take any credit for that one. That's all Zealot, who those guys are geniuses, and we've done some really amazing trailers with them. They had submitted that to us, but the second I heard those strings, I felt the same way that to convey tension in a movie that has ultimately kind of a small story,
Yeah.
that they were able to make feel very tense and very urgent. Like that was just incredible work by them.
Yeah, yeah. And they're on the AV side. I mean, they've been doing work at the indie level, at a
Yes.
really high level for a long time. But the last 2 or 3 years, I mean, they've taken it to a whole other level.
Yeah. for
So
sure.
I really appreciate I mean Zealot I think is one of the best in class in terms of the creative that they do on the digital side, but seeing what they're able to raising their game on the AV side is just really really inspiring, encouraging. So I give those guys a lot of credit. Another one completely different from a music standpoint, the Silent Night trailer.
Yes.
And I forgot the name of that classical composition. What was it? Do you remember off the top of your head?
Uh, yes. So
Dun 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 dun. Yeah.
it's Ode to Joy, I
Ode to
believe. Is
Joy.
that right?
Ode to Joy. Yeah.
Yes. Um, yeah. So that's Greg Krupka, who's,
Fucking
talk about
Krupka, man.
legends, probably
Talk.
one of my favorite editors of all time.
He's like
Um,
he's like a genius in his own special way. Like
Absolutely.
we're throwing genius around, but like he like I don't know, man. He's a
No, he's
different
a
kind of a
genius.
cat. Like he's
Yeah. But also like the nicest, most humble dude
totally,
ever.
totally.
So
So what I was curious about that is when you take a classical composition like that, do you have to get special permission because it's a specific recording of it, but also the way that it's being interspersed and weaved with those the sound cues, like it was, I don't know, man. Does it? Do you have to get, or once you get the license for the music, you could do whatever the fuck you want with it?
exactly. And that was a case where we thought, well, this is a song that's in the public domain, so we don't have to pay for the publishing side.
But the
We just have
recording
to
of
pay for
it,
the master. Exactly.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we just have to pay for the recording, so we can get a little bit more creative with the custom. And that's what AV Squad. I mean, their music is always so great.
Well, it
Um,
makes sense because you know what I noted was that the way he was lining it up with bullets in the chamber, he was
yes.
using gunshots, but he was using all of those sounds to drive the rhythm of the piece. And in some cases, the beat was just a little bit off to kind of shake me out of the trance so that I was still paying attention. It was like
Yeah.
not quite on time once or twice to keep me, but that it makes sense because I remember going back to like some of their earliest stuff that was really breaking through the Fast and Furious stuff in the early days. They used sound effects the same way to compose. It wasn't just a piece of music, it was a composition of sound in general. So that
Yeah.
makes a ton of sense. Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And, I mean, obviously they've got amazing editors. They've got one of the best music supervisors in the business, but their graphics department is also incredible. And for that piece, the graphics are my favorite part.
Oh,
Because yeah, it's funny. I had been talking to Greg about potential graphics ideas, and I showed him a Blu-ray I worked on at Fox like 10 years prior, where it was for the Die Hard anniversary, and we basically made key art out of, like an ugly sweater, but it looked like Nakatomi Plaza with an explosion, and I showed that to Greg, and I was like, "Is there a way that we could do something that feels like a Christmas sweater, but so violent at the same time?" And they came up with these graphics where it's like blood is exploding onto this knit pattern that's showing the words and just smearing all over it. Just great, great work by them.
yeah, yeah. Sorry, I'm making a note because I want to make sure I remember to put the Sisu trailer link in there. Now,
Cool.
were you able to work directly with Kevin Smith on Clerks
I,
3?
I was, yeah, that was a dream come true because Clerks changed my life as a 14-year-old, seeing it for the first time. That's a perfect age to watch a movie
Totally.
that's full of Star Wars references and dick jokes. And it just totally expanded my mind of like, wow, anybody can make a movie. And because this is a guy who did it, for $30,000 on a credit card.
So, by the
It's
way, I
yeah.
grew up practically walking distance from where the original was shot.
Are you serious?
Yeah, he's from Red Bank, and I'm from the Freehold area, technically Manalapan. But yeah, Kevin, I think Kevin's maybe 4. He's about the same age as the guy from. So we come from this really, I don't know. This has nothing to do with anything, but we come from this really creative little place, Monmouth County, New Jersey. So
Yeah.
two towns one way were Blues Traveler, John Popper, Chan, Bobby. Those guys grew up and graduated from the public high school there. And they were playing backyard keggers when I was in high school and, the college years. And then two towns the other way in Red Bank is where Kevin Smith was playing around with, home video cameras and starting to do his first films.
Wow.
Freehold is actually where Bruce Springsteen is 22 years older than me. So
Okay.
he came way before. But then two towns to the north of us, And about 10 years prior to me was John Bon Jovi and his cousin Pat and those and those
Wow.
and Richie and those guys grew
Yeah,
up. So we come from a really, really super creative little hub right there.
that's amazing.
But I never got to meet Kevin. The closest I ever came was when I think he hosted the Golden Trailers one year or something.
Oh, okay.
But he's
Well, he's
somebody like of all
yeah.
the people that I've wanted to have on this show or just any show, like he's definitely top 5 for me, if not, right at the top.
He's the nicest guy ever. We worked on Clerks 3 with him. We just did a special release of Dogma with him. He not only is he, does he appreciate the work, but um, very little notes, and just like so grateful when you send him
Oh,
stuff, and he really just loves it. He's just so kind, and um, actually during the time of Clerks 3, he gave me a nickname, the Pope of Posters, which somebody on the team, my good friend Nancy, made a nameplate for me at the time that's in my office now that says the Pope of Posters.
that's
So
awesome.
I got to
Did
thank Kevin for that.
did you ever read the book Spike, Mike, Slackers, and Dykes?
No, I really want to. I got to
Yeah,
put that on
because
my
he's
list.
basically the voice of that book, and I'm so glad he is. So for folks who don't know, it's written by a guy named John Pearson, who is a producer's rep, and he had a lot of successes in a really critical time for independent movies between '79 and '89. So you get people emerging like Spike Lee's first movies, some of the Texas filmmakers coming out of there, Rich Rodriguez and Linklater.
Mhm.
He repped Soderbergh's first Sex, Lies, and
Text lines of it.
Videotape.
Yep.
But Kevin is really he so Pearson channels Kevin's voice through most of that book to really get an understanding of that important time in the history of independent film. Highly recommend. You know what? I'll link that one too.
Nice.
Trailer Geeks and Teaser Gods is brought to you by Soundstripe. So if you're an editor, a producer, a creative exec, a music supervisor, or even a podcaster like me, if you're a content creator of all stripes, if you will, and you're looking for the perfect library of music and sound effects, check out Soundstripe. With over 10,000 high quality tracks, including music from Grammy winning artists, Soundstripe makes music licensing hassle free. Believe me, I've tried it. I've been on there, I've navigated around. It was really terrific. It was really easy to use. So, with a simple subscription, you get unlimited access to a vast catalog, downloadable stems for creative flexibility, and AI song editing to customize tracks effortlessly. Plus, their seamless integration with Premiere, which is what most of my editor friends are on, it means a smoother editing experience. If you're ready to level up your production game with properly licensed, high quality music and sound effects, head over to soundstripe.com/trailergeeks and save 10% with code trailergeeks. That's soundstripe.com/trailergeeks and code trailergeeks. All right, so dude, there's so many other titles I could talk to you about, but there's some other things I want to ask you about.
Sure.
Um, you have an interesting life journey, but the industry and a lot of us have been through some pretty traumatic moments over the last 5, 6 years.
Yeah.
I'm curious how you've gotten through it. I read somewhere about that you're into meditation and hot yoga. Is that part of your toolbox of how you've gotten through it, or what else have you like between pandemic and fires and strikes and all the kinds of things that we've had to go through together over the last 5, 6 years?
Absolutely. I mean, hot yoga is something I got into this past year and absolutely love it. But I've been into meditation for a very long time. I was doing uh, like float meditations where, it's like a sensory deprivation tank, and you're basically floating on a ton of Epsom salt water,
Oh,
with no light, no sound for an hour. I was doing that for a long time at a place in Pasadena near my house, and unfortunately it shut down. So I haven't been able to do that. So I've been trying to find new ways to access that super deep meditation. Hot yoga's done it for me. I've gotten into cold plunging,
oh,
which is crazy, but
yeah,
I really love it. Um, and yeah, I mean, the the work can be very stressful.
yeah,
Um, eh, there's so many politics. It's funny coming from music where you're still working on artwork that's going to represent a thing, right?
yeah,
Um, and work on these options, and you give them to the people who approve it. And it's a very straightforward process. And what's funny, I was at Rhino Records working on album art for classic albums. So you're presenting art to, in some cases, like lifelong drug addicts that are giving you more cohesive notes and easier to work with than studio executives. Because, there's just the studio system is built on so many superstitions, and there's so many politics. So, um, if you let that get in the way of the joy of building creative materials, it can be stressful.
Yeah.
And so I try my best to just focus on the work, because honestly, that's, I'm not writing or recording music as much as I used to. So that's my greatest creative outlet is, working on trailers, working on posters. And if you focus on that and you find a way to manage the stress, it's the greatest job in the world.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've talked about this. I've gotten into meditation over the last 3, 4 years. Maybe 2 or 3 years actually. I was late to the game, but it literally changed my brain. So that's been a game changer. We also got an infrared sauna here
Oh, nice.
in the house. Yeah, totally worth the investment.
Yeah,
Sometimes I'll do the meditation in there. The extreme, somewhat extreme conditions forces your concentration,
absolutely.
but also just from a health standpoint, kind of it feels like you're cleaning out in a way. So, yeah, I mean, for some of us, it does take quite a regimen, and I'm constantly reminded of how vulnerable I am, and I guess a lot of folks are. As soon as I think that I'm impervious to um, uh, falling outside of these healthy ranges, mental health wise, I'm reminded that no, I'm still prone
Yeah,
to episodes and seasons that are outside of healthy ranges. So I just have to stay
sure.
pretty. I have to stay pretty humble about that and really dedicated to this regimen of, meditation and some other things that I do.
That's amazing.
From an industry standpoint, how do you think the industry, you've been in the industry for a good stretch now, 15
Yeah,
or so years. How have you seen the industry change over the time that you've been in it?
man, it's changed so much. But at the same time, there's certain things that just, as people predict that they're going to go away, I don't think they ever will, not in our lifetime, and maybe not ever. I mean, I worked in music right after Napster, and everybody said the music business was going to collapse, and it's still going strong. I mean, my daughter buys physical albums. She buys records,
Yeah,
and
you see
so
on my shelf. That is a gift
there
from
you
my
go.
son, the
That's
Louis
amazing.
Armstrong, and he bought me one of Dylan's acoustic albums too to listen on
Nice.
vinyl. So
Yeah.
yeah, he's listening on it. He's lit. Like the funny thing is he's an EDM artist. He's into dubstep and creating dubstep music. So like electronic to the nth degree. But at the same time, he's into jazz. He's
Yeah.
into and specifically listening on vinyl. So it's pretty encouraging.
Absolutely. And then as far as like physical media for movies goes, that's something people have said is going to die forever, and it's not. It's just changing. I mean, I think when I worked, on titles 10 years ago for DreamWorks Animation, you're basically making DVDs to sell to moms to play in their minivans for their kids. And now you're making physical media for collectors who are just obsessed with movies.
Mm,
And there are, people who collect steelbooks the same way people collect records. And so that's growing. It's funny, like regular DVD, Blu-ray sales, that's all falling off a cliff, but people who collect specialty items, steelbooks, box sets, that's all growing. We track it on Reddit. I think um, one of my favorite things to do is to just get temperature checks on subreddits, because that's where, like, the data that you're getting from people who are giving opinions freely on things that they care about is so much better than the data that you get from people who are you're asking for opinions on the spot about things they don't care about.
mm.
So, like, communities like Reddit, where people collect, these are the most passionate moviegoers and fans of movies. They love movies so much that they want to physically own the movie even when it's the least convenient thing in the world.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've gotten a lot of insight from there and we've watched those communities grow. So, physical media is hanging on. And for all the people who think the theatrical movie experience is going to go away, there's no way. I just watched Weapons with, opening weekend with a big group of friends, and that feeling of like the gasps in that room and the nervous laughter and the things everybody is feeling at the same time, that communal experience, you can't get that at home.
I'm glad you brought that up because I've been having this conversation a lot this week. Um, do you think that the industry has to adapt dramatically in order to get people to come out to the theaters, or are we overthinking it?
I think we're overthinking it. I think, people got in this habit of not going to the movies during COVID. They have these comfortable setups. But when the right movie comes out and people start going and they're reminded of this experience, the behavior starts to change.
Mm,
And I think that's just slower for some people than it is for others. Um, but there's certainly several movies that came out this year that I think are getting us back on track, and hopefully that'll continue to keep growing.
yeah. So it doesn't just have to be the big old cushy seats or the Sphere or the no, just going to the movies with a whole bunch of friendly strangers is enough.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So some fun questions.
Sure.
I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but favorite campaigns or piece of creative advertising, not necessarily your own.
Man, this is tough.
You can
I
have a
would
few if you want.
okay. Well, on the print side, I'll say the Guardians of the Galaxy
Oh,
campaign. When I just remember where I was the first time I saw that poster, and I thought, like, is that a human-sized tree screaming and running towards camera? And is that a raccoon holding a machine gun that shoots space lasers? Like, it just broke my brain. Like, this looks so fucking cool. And I collected comics as a kid, but I didn't know the Guardians of the Galaxy.
okay.
So that just was positioned in such a cool way. That team at Disney, they always do such a great job. Um, on the trailer side, man, I would say Three Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri.
Yes.
That trailer is incredible. I think that's motive. That Searchlight team, Heather over there is brilliant. They do such great work. But I just remember I was at Fox when that came out. I wasn't working on the campaign, but I was seated next to somebody in the AV department who was, and I kept hearing the trailer and thinking like, that Red Band version, this is the funniest thing I've ever heard. And it's at the same time so emotionally deep and powerful and very like heavy stuff, but so fucking funny. And then, of course, Walk Away Renee, the cue in the back half of I love that song
Yeah.
by the Left Bank. Um, so yeah, that would be one of my favorites. And then going back to Greg Krupka, I would say Barbarian. That
Oh,
trailer is
yeah.
incredible.
Wow.
Um, yeah, because my wife and I watched it and it scared the shit out of us. But and she hates horror movies, but it did it in a way that it was still so compelling that we were like, we have to watch this, which is so hard to do.
All right.
And
Yeah.
to preserve all the secrets of the movie at the same time, to really just build a trailer off of, like the first fifth of the movie, and still make it as compelling as he did, like that's just an incredible trailer.
All right. So speaking of horror trailers,
Yeah.
fuck you, by the way. The Strangers Chapter One. You
Oh
had me,
man.
dude. I thought I was watching a Hallmark movie for like the first whatever third of the trailer, and then I like you hit me in the face. So fuck you.
Oh man.
The music
That
that the music choices in that one in particular, like you totally drew me in. I thought I was going for a certain ride. I'm like, and I forgot the title of the movie for a second because I'm just
yeah,
watching this cute little couple and and bam, hit me in the face.
man. Well, that's Bill Neal. And honestly, like uh Buddha had picked that cue, which is the perfect cue.
Yeah,
But there was one moment where even though the chorus is in a major key, I thought, can one of the Brahms happen over it to imply a minor key after this turn has happened? And Bill didn't quite understand what I was talking about. And I'm
yeah.
like, I'm coming to your bay and I'm bringing a guitar, which was like career highlight to be seated in Bill Neal's editing bay with the guitar, and I'm like, all right, so this is a C major chord. If we hit a heavy A over the top of it, it's going to sound like an A minor seventh. It's going to
Oh
sound
yeah,
dark and
that's right.
spooky.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Oh man,
that
because
that
that's
was a
discordant.
fun
Was
one.
it a C major and an A major?
It was a C major just with a low A under it. So
Okay.
it kind of took the C and the E from the C major to imply an A minor.
And then yeah, because you got the sixth, and then the sixth, if it's the root, the C becomes the minor chord.
Exactly.
Oh man, that's really interesting. It's interesting that the way that you would construct that. But I don't know if Bill is a musician, but to be able for I'm sure he heard it once you played it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we once we started talking about it, he's like absolutely, and then he threw it in. It sounded perfect.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
that's
yeah,
awesome.
just having that dialogue with another living legend, that was amazing.
Were they already in the Ivar building or were they still over on Sycamore?
Ivar,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that was his bay a couple different times. Going
nice.
back to the trailer park days and then again with Buddha when they got back in that building.
Yeah,
So there is some history there, man. Some absolute
absolutely.
history. I could do this all day, dude. But okay, so now you get to turn the tables on me. What are your
Yeah.
questions?
Well, excuse the preamble before the question, but I mentioned the meaning that your podcast has to me personally, in that it taught me so many things about this business. Um, but aside from the language that it taught me and the people that it taught me, I think this business can ultimately be very fleeting. It's a very ephemeral business. You work on one movie, you work on the next one, you work on the next one. But what you're doing keeps a log and keeps adds a sense of permanence and meaning to all of these people who who have worked in this tradition. And I'm just wondering if you're aware of the impact that your podcast has and what that means to you.
I really appreciate you saying that. I can't say that I think of it quite in those terms. One of the reasons I set out on the project and I'm still doing it is because I feel like I'm more sitting on your side of the microphone. I'm doing it not quite selfishly, but in a way it is selfishly because I've over the years that I've been in the business, I've heard all of these stories and I want to keep all of these stories. So that's the selfish part. But also, I I I have such a drive for others to be able to benefit or to appreciate what I've been able to appreciate. Because I've been from the day one that I got into doing this. The part that I love the most was sitting down for lunch and hearing somebody's story. And everybody has such a fascinating story. Even people that came with reputations that preceded them, once I got to sit down with them for an hour and a half, 2 hours, like, wow, just blows my mind where they come from and what influenced them and what their struggles were, how they overcame their struggles, what they're struggling through now and how they're dealing with it. And man, I had such a burden to want to capture that, preserve that, share that. So I'm glad that that's your experience. I can't really take credit for it other than to like let people in on the conversations that I've been able to have and to like I said, this burden to want to share it because all these we've mentioned so many different Greg Crop, Bill Neal, Skip, all these different people,
Yeah.
let alone all the different people on the print side, to be able to share those stories and the process. So I'm glad that we have a record of it. And this thing that Benny came to do, his idea to do that extended tribute to Andy,
Yeah.
man, I mean, talk about going to the way back. And these folks have, like, they were in the room when it happened.
Yeah.
When we were going from, when the industry as a whole way preceded my time, your time, but when the industry as a whole was transitioning from the National Screen Service days to when filmmakers were beginning to recognize that the trailers can be an art form in themselves, so to have Deborah Luster, for example,
Yeah.
talking about, oh yeah, when we were working on the Star Wars, I'm like, wait, Deb, slow down, you just buried a major lead right there. So I don't know, man. I'm so glad that that you gleaned something from it. But that's the idea is to make a record to celebrate. these freaking geniuses,
Yeah,
and just good, interesting people, so that others can celebrate it too. So that's
absolutely.
that's what it's been about.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I didn't know what Kaleidoscope was. I didn't know Andy Keene. So um, to hear that those tributes, it it was so moving, and to hear the stories of so many of these people. I mean, not just for them, but also for their families who have no idea what any of us do.
that's right.
So
That's right. You do what? I thought they just
exactly
take the best scenes and put it together.
right.
Yeah. So that's cool. Any other questions?
No, this has been an incredible experience, Corey. I'm so grateful to have been on this show. So thank you so much.
You bet, man. Oh, so I do have a question for you.
Sure.
If I'm going to continue, I'm still a relative newbie when it comes to meditation. Do you have any recommendations? Ibby actually sent me a great recommendation for transcendental meditation.
Oh,
So I'm
nice.
really grateful to Ibby for that. Any recommendations you can give me to keep on pursuing this practice?
Man, I've always wanted to get into TM. For me, it's really just been about just setting the time and being really forgiving with yourself because my mind personally just wants to race. I want to think about things that are happening in my day. And when that happens, just acknowledging it and letting it pass and not be like, stop thinking. The more worked up you get with yourself, the harder it is to let go. And that's the goal is to just let go and to focus on the sounds around you, the sensations in your body. Just let your senses take control and let your mind wind down.
Yeah, yeah, good. I really appreciate that. It is a practice. They call it a practice for a reason. It is that. Before we go, how can folks check out some of the campaign? You guys such a great team at Lionsgate. I'm really grateful to Adam and the whole team over there for being gracious and letting folks come on the show and share experiences. But how can folks follow the campaigns that Lionsgate is working on and just stay up to date with all the great work that you and the whole team are doing?
Absolutely. So, Lionsgate socials, we're at Lionsgate on Instagram. Lionsgate has an incredible TikTok channel that's so irreverent and so fun. I'm a little old for TikTok, but I'm forcing myself to use it. And anybody that's on it, if they want to follow Lionsgate, it's a great follow.
Terrific. I'll be sure to put those links in the show notes. I got it written down. Now
Cool.
we covered a lot. Is there anything important that we haven't covered that you want to add before we wrap it up?
The only thing I want to do is, I've shouted out so many people I've worked with. I have not mentioned my great boss, Amelia Rogers, who's built the most amazing community at Lionsgate, and really grateful to her and the Lionsgate family. I've been there 8 years now, and it's been the most incredible experience.
That's awesome. Yeah, shout out to all those guys over there from the top down. Just a bunch of really not just smart and creative, but everybody that I know over there are genuinely good, decent people. So there's something to be said about people throw around words like culture and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, it comes down to like the quality of the human beings that make up the team. And everybody that
Absolutely.
I know are just genuinely good, decent human beings. So I really appreciate that.
Here, here.
Aaron, thank you so much for doing this, man. This is really a treat. We got to
Thanks,
hang out
Corey.
again. Grab, IRL, as they say, and grab another hamburger or something over in your neck of the woods. So
I
thanks for
would love
doing this.
that. Thank you.
You bet. You bet. And thank you for listening. As always, please rate us and review us wherever you get your podcast. It really does help us in the rankings so others can enjoy these conversations and follow people's careers and imagine themselves in these careers or your colleagues being able to appreciate the work and the thought and the stories. Follow us on all the socials. I'm at Corey S. Nathan, at Corey S as in Sam, Nathan. Check out our awesome sponsors, 2496 Sound of Music Design, the Golden Trailer Awards, and Soundstripe. Really grateful to all those folks for helping us keep the lights on. Thanks again for joining us. Now go do some inspired work.